My name's Alec Kepner. I'm an environmental science student here at Marshall University, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the Mill Creek watershed of Ohio. So, what is a watershed? So, in general, a watershed is an area of land where the precipitation is diverted into water bodies such as creeks and rivers. So, once this happens, the water is eventually taken to an outflow point such as a bay or an ocean. So if you look at the chart at the right, you're going to see precipitation visual. So the making of a river, keep in mind precipitation. Where does this precipitation come from? Well, it comes from the water cycle. Precipitation can come in about four forms. It comes in four forms: water, snow, sleet, and hail. When this precipitation happens, especially at higher elevations, you can also deal with the snowpack. So you're going to have to look at the changing seasons and the snow melt. Once this happens, general hydrology and other physical processes happen, which results in runoff and water from higher elevations going to lower elevations, aka the watershed. This runoff goes through farmland, homes, and roads, and other areas where it goes into the rivers, through the dams, potentially factory plants, depending on the area you're in. And you don't want to forget about your groundwater flow too. That can groundwater can be important because all those chemicals can and do leach into the ground, and eventually it's going to go to your lakes and oceans. So, what is So, science or policy? You're going to be dealing with both here, the social sciences and the natural sciences. You're going to be dealing with the standard operating procedures for the scientific aspect, or the SOP, standard operating procedure, QHEI, qualitative habitat environmental index. Those of you from Ohio and that are familiar with the Ohio EPA know that that is a common factor that you're going to be dealing with when reviewing or potentially creating those standard operating procedures in the future, water testing, and those of you that have taken aquatic toxicology, I remember that we all learned about, and also that we will see in these reports, is dissolved oxygen, pH, alkalinity, hardness, and other chemical testing. So, importance of the watershed. So they provide clean drinking water, they provide drainage of rainwater, they provide a habitat for flora and fauna, and they also allow for recreational areas. How many watersheds are found in the United States? Well, odds are you're going to be standing on a watershed right now, regardless of how hilly or flat uh, the terrain or elevation is. Uh, there's going to be a slight elevation leading to that watershed. Remember, groundwater also contributes to that watershed. There are a total of 78 main watersheds in the continental United States. So, more specifically, the Mill Creek watershed. Uh, that's the official name of it. Keep in mind, if you do look this up or do more research, there are technically two Mill Creek watersheds that are labeled in the state of Ohio. One is south near Cincinnati, but the one that I'm focusing on and that we've been discussing is in Union County. So this one's in central Ohio. So keep that in mind. Make sure you look at a map because there are two watersheds. So location is Ohio, spans three counties, Union, Delaware, and Logan. The size is 178 square miles in total, and the water is deposited in the Scioto River. It's really important because every county is different. Some counties are completely industrial or all agricultural. Some are a mix. Others are suburban or urban. But 80% of this of what these counties are and where this watershed is located is agricultural. So when you keep that in mind, we're going to be dealing with herbicides, insecticides, pesticides. So, fun fact: essentially, this watershed and this creek, they flow through the city of Marysville. That's the county seat of Union County. For those of you unfamiliar with the area, and 66% of that city obtains its drinking water from this watershed. AKA another important reason why watersheds are a great thing to focus on in the environmental or biological field. Briefly, TMDLs and map of watersheds. So we have our basin, our study areas, our goals, our major causes. More in depth, the major causes. Again, we're dealing with organic enrichment and low dissolved oxygen habitat alteration. Major sources of this, as we discussed earlier, municipal and industrial point source discharges, urban and agricultural runoff, and habitat alteration. The measurements that were done involved dissolved oxygen, testing for ammonia, phosphorus, as well as biological and habitat indices. Again, restoration options, so potential solutions. We can deal with point source controls, habitat protection and restoration, septic system improvements, and urban runoff controls, and public education. Again, this is going to be super important because we have the agricultural areas, so that, the farmers and everything else that can learn and maybe cut back on the use of these insecticides and herbicides and pesticides. You have the chance to maybe create a natural buffering system or something to help reduce the amount of these chemicals getting into the water. And also from a city standpoint, people can learn about ways to cut back on the utilization of oils or road salts, because again, even those, they're going to go through your sewers and eventually make its way into this watershed. 303D list and total maximum daily loads. So briefly, total maximum daily loads, or TMDLs, they must be dealt for all waters on the 303D list. TMDL is a calculation of the maximum amount of a pollutant that is the water body. Water body, again, can constitute as a river, lake, or stream, and can receive while maintaining water quality standards. This is from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. In 1972, the Clean Water Act, again under Section 303D, requires the states list as well as set priority to waters that do not ensure attainment of specific water quality standards. The list of important waters within the state of Ohio under the 303D list is made publicly available, as well as submitted to the EPA in every numbered year. And again, you can find this under 40 CFR 130.7D. Source inputs. So this is a really important concept. We covered this earlier in the lecture, and I've also learned this in other courses, but a key aspect to understand is the difference between point source pollution and non-point source pollution. So a point source is pollution coming from one specific area or point, such as a factory or a sewage treatment plant. And the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration has really great visuals on this, so I highly recommend you take a trip over to that site and check it out. But in this case, it would be the Scotts Lawn plant in Union County, as well as the Union County sewage treatment plant. Non-point source pollution, runoff from urban or agricultural areas. Pesticides, insecticides, and animals waste is a perfect example for this watershed basin. Also, the total maximum daily load for the Mill Creek River Basin. Things to keep in mind is the final report was prepared by the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency Division of Surface Water. Summarized findings of the Mill Creek watershed that encompassed 178 miles in Logan, Union, and Delaware counties in Ohio, and found that during certain seasons, high nutrient levels were found. Enhanced stream water quality model was used to predict this in the stream and chemical concentration responses to various point source inputs, as well as the stream conditions in the creek. Technical Release 55 was a model used to display an estimation of stormwater runoff, which impacted the Crosses Run and North Branch cross runs from the Scotts Lawn facility. QHEI, Qualitative Habitat Environmental Index, just a reminder for what that acronym stands for, was used in Blues Creek to establish habitat restoration goals. If you haven't noticed the general theme, whenever habitat restoration goals are taken into place by the Ohio EPA, the state's version of the Ohio EPA, QHEI is always used, and those of you, the West Virginia, the Ohio EPA is the same equivalence of the West Virginia DEP, or Department of Environmental Protection. So, concluded findings, all 7 parts of the water body segments making up the watershed had the following documented as making up the major causes of the 303D list. The tests were done during the year 1998 and 2002. During the summary reports I had examined, and 7 water body segments were labeled as Mill Creek headwaters. Mill Creek Audit Run, Town Run, Crosses Run, North Branch Crosses Run, Blues Creek, and BMY Tributary. So here's just a table of everything we kind of covered so far, table of 303D report. This is given in the document that I've been summarizing and evaluating from the Ohio EPA website. You have your X and Y axes, and at the essentially at the top, you're gonna have your water body segment, 303D status, years, major causes included in the report, and some general comments. Pollutants of the Mill Creek watershed will runoff from precipitation occurs. This again, all the pesticides, animal waste, herbicides go into the area of the Mill Creek, and it raises the it results in high nutrient levels. From a environmental chemistry standpoint, the excessive nutrients, phosphorus and nitrogen, result in algae blooms. When algae decays, the oxygen necessary for aquatic life becomes depleted. This is also reference to low levels of dissolved oxygen within the creek. This can result in habitat alteration. So this is obviously a recorded side, but if I was presenting this in real life, I would do questions and pretty much lost my voice. But I hope you enjoyed this PowerPoint. Again, this was just a brief overview of the your 3D list, TMDLs, and other basic introductions to the Mill Creek Union County watershed. Sources include the Ohio Mill or the Mill Creek watershed of Union County, U.S. Department of Commerce, the Ohio State EPA website, and our book that we have for the class, Ronnie Phillip and Tim Beachy, Stream and Watershed Restoration.